A phased withdrawal from Kuwait. It's believed 3,000 troops will be heading back to Saudi Arabia each day. The Allied occupation of southeast Iraq is now official. According to the Pentagon, Baghdad has agreed to keep its troops north of an Allied occupation zone that stretches 150 miles north of the Saudi border. The agreement is intended to prevent new clashes between Allied and Iraqi forces. U.S. officials say it will stay in effect until a permanent ceasefire takes place and coalition troops withdraw. Efforts inside Iraq to overthrow Saddam Hussein apparently are gaining momentum. Witnesses are reporting violent anti-Hussein protests in Basra and several other Iraqi cities. There are reports that the mayor of Basra, a governor, and a son of Saddam Hussein have been killed in the fighting. Tom Mintier has more.
In Kuwait City, the remnants of Saddam Hussein's once powerful army continue to be rounded up as prisoners. They may soon be returned to Iraq, but the road home could be a difficult journey, not just for the soldiers, but for the man who sent them into Kuwait, Saddam Hussein. There are reports out of the southern Iraqi city of Basra that fierce fighting has broken out between the Republican Guard and opponents of Saddam Hussein. Many of the opponents are said to be the disgruntled soldiers tired of fighting Saddam's battles.
The people, they don't want President Saddam Hussein. They killed the police and Arab associates.
Boys, they are shooting everybody. They have guns. They shoot the pictures. They control, and the army control Basra border.
Each time Saddam Hussein meets with his Revolutionary Council, he may be wondering who at the table might betray him in a grab for power. In Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the leader of Iraq's opposition in exile says someone close might have the access to remove Saddam.
I foresee most likely some of his people surrounding him, some of the people who may be considered closest to him, will be the first to pull the trigger, because it is their life that's at stake as well, and I don't think they have any more hope or faith in Saddam Hussein continuing or remaining in power.
There are reports that Saddam Hussein has been investigating the possibility of seeking asylum, but few nations are apparently willing to risk the heat of inviting him. Algeria and Cuba are the nations mentioned most often, but both have denied such a request has ever been made. For the people of Iraq, the past 10 years have been just about unbearable. Several 100,000 have been killed in 2 wars. After the first with Iran, the captured territory was returned. Now Saddam Hussein has lost his 19th province. The Iraqi people may now start to question Saddam Hussein's political and military wisdom. Although portraits of the Iraqi president are still standing in every city, some of them have been altered by defeated troops returning from Kuwait, something you wouldn't have seen anywhere just a few weeks ago. Tom Mintier, CNN, Kuwait City.
In other news, the president of Chile is trying to make amends for human rights abuses committed by Chile's former military regime. Patricio Aylwin is ordering reparations for victimized families. He has released an investigation report about atrocities committed under General Augusto Pinochet. Hundreds of people disappeared or were tortured to death during Pinochet's 16 years in power. Aylwin also has requested the courts to reopen trials against officials charged with human rights crimes. The first ever meeting of the new Soviet presidential cabinet is now history. Soviet President Gorbachev presided over the 55-member cabinet Monday. Afterwards, Gorbachev described a tough, businesslike.
Lucy Deutsch received a letter about her song from the Gulf. The sender said he was giving it to Armed Forces Radio.
So all the troops can appreciate it as much as I did. Sincerely, H. Norman Schwarzkopf, General, U.S. Army. That letter warmed my heart. I feel so proud.
My beloved America.
Gloria Hillard, CNN, Los Angeles.
We can't top that, so please join us tomorrow for a profile.
All remaining Allied prisoners of war. That's the word from Baghdad's ambassador to the United Nations. This promised group of freed captives would follow 10 others released Monday. Jeannie Mose now has the story from the United Nations.
When Iraq released the first 10 POWs, the first word of the release came from Iraq's ambassador to the UN. Now that same official is saying Iraq is prepared to free all prisoners of war. Ambassador Abdul Amir Al-Ambari puts the total number of POWs at 43, which would mean 33 more are expected to be released Tuesday.
Definitely all of them, and I emphasize all of them, American, British, and other members, will be repatriated.
Iraq's UN ambassador says the POWs will be handed over to the International Committee of the Red Cross, and that a Red Cross plane will be allowed to land in Baghdad Tuesday afternoon, 6 a.m. Eastern Time, to take the prisoners of war to what the ambassador described as whatever destination they want. And the POW issue isn't the only one Iraq is now cooperating on. The Iraqi ambassador paid a call on the Secretary General of the UN Monday, and in an interview with CNN, the Secretary General said Iraq had agreed to yet another Security Council condition, rescinding the law that turned Kuwait into Iraq's 19th province.
That they intended to nullify all the laws or all the legislation which was related to the annexation of Kuwait.
He's right, yes, and I did inform him of that, and starting tomorrow we are taking the necessary steps, either through the National Assembly or through the Revolutionary Command Council.
But one thing Iraq's UN ambassador wouldn't confirm, and that is reports of civil unrest or rebellion in southern Iraq.
I think I can say with confidence that really there is no truth in it.
Jeannie Moe, CNN at the United Nations.
The first of the Allied POWs to be released are now on board the American hospital ship Mercy in the Persian Gulf. 6 Americans, 3 Britons, and an Italian boarded the ship in Bahrain after flying by military transport from Amman, Jordan. They were freed Monday in Baghdad. On board the Mercy, they can expect more medical checkups and military debriefings.
They're all in good shape, and they have good spirits. During the flight, they were very talkative. They have some concerns about people that they feel are still there, and they're going to be debriefing some of their people about that, too.
Families of the newly freed prisoners joyfully are waiting to welcome them home. The mother of former captive Melissa Rathbun-Neely is planning, quote, one heck of a 21st birthday party for his daughter when she returns home to Newaygo, Michigan. Friends from high school say she appears to be well.
I heard it on the news. Kelly and I was at her house, and Joan called and told us that she was on the news. So we flipped it on, and there she was, beautiful as ever, and smiling and ready to come home. And Kelly and I cried, and there she is, and I stayed up and watched the news, flipping back and forth through channels, and she looks great. I can't wait to see her.
President Bush welcomed the initial Allied prisoner release, but he also called on Iraq to follow up by freeing the rest of its POWs, as well as Kuwaiti citizens it has detained. Speaking to a veterans group, Mr. Bush said this is a time to be fiercely proud of U.S. forces and other Allied military personnel.
We rejoice in our victory. I think we can also rejoice in the fact that we are a humble nation, that we have pride, of course, in what took place, but that we're not gloating. We are not trying to rub it in. What we stood for was a principle, and now we got to stand for doing what's right by our veterans, and we got to stand for doing what's right by those countries whose freedom we saved around the world.
The Allies are expected to begin releasing imprisoned Iraqi soldiers Tuesday, but Saudi Arabian officials say there may be logistical problems. There still is no firm figure on how many POWs the Allies hold, but estimates range as high as 150,000. Further complicating matters, the Saudis say many of the Iraqi prisoners are seeking political asylum because they're afraid to return to Iraq. The post-war era is beginning in Kuwait. Monday, Kuwait's crown prince became the first senior member of the royal family to set foot in the country since the Iraqi invasion last August. When he got off the plane, he knelt in prayer on the tarmac. Kuwaiti leaders say it'll take years to rebuild their country. Citizens of the once prosperous state stood in bread lines waiting for food from members of the Kuwaiti resistance. In an effort to make conditions seem as normal as possible under the circumstances, Allied forces have begun pulling out of Kuwait. It's believed 3,000 personnel are leaving every day. Several Arab members of the anti-Iraq coalition want all the nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons removed from the Middle East. Gulf Cooperation Council called for the ban on Monday. Reports of growing political unrest in Iraq are raising White House hopes for the overthrow of Saddam Hussein. But as Rob Begliner reports, other officials are not as optimistic.
Anti-Saddam demonstrations by fundamentalist Muslims and some fighting among Iraqis reveal that Iraq's iron fist dictatorship may have some cracks. Unrest is reported in Basra, Iraq's second largest city, and in a handful of other southern Iraqi cities. There is even an Iranian news agency report attributed to an Iraqi opposition leader that Saddam's eldest son, the mayor of Basra, was killed in fighting between loyalist Republican Guard troops and rebels. For the moment, there are no reports of noticeable opposition in Baghdad. The Iraqi leader has not been seen with his people in weeks. U.S. officials say President Bush is hoping the pressure cooker atmosphere of the end of the war might topple Saddam Hussein. The Bush administration insists it's not backing any Iraqi opposition movements, but the U.S. says Iraq's people would do better if they get rid of Saddam.
That in terms of cooperation from and with the rest of the world, it would be a lot easier and certainly be more forthcoming if the regime that invaded Kuwait and brutalized Kuwait did not remain the regime that governed Iraq.
U.S. officials pin their hopes on Iraq's professional military leaders. They, perhaps more than anyone else, understand the thorough destruction and humiliation of Iraq and its army.
He doesn't need the army to stay in power, but the army could topple it.
Iraq's army might recognize that changing the government could help Iraq recover. Western leaders want to avoid seeing Iraq crumble into chaos after the war. Iraq's Kurdish minority has long wanted independence, but the U.S. hopes to prevent Iraq from being carved up.
We do need a different Iraq. We do need a weaker Iraq from the military viewpoint. We do need a more democratic Iraq, but we don't need a anarchist Iraq.
U.S. officials admit there is no sign that Saddam's departure, even if it happens, would change Iraq's style of government. One official told CNN, "I don't think we have any dreams that they're going to suddenly come up with a democracy there."